What's up, everybody? This is Josio C. Samuels, Managing Director for Faiā, and today we're going to talk about Bitcoin as a plumbing system. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is because of an interview that I did last night on Satoshi TV on YouTube. All right, so the interviewer is at Satoshi, and we got to talking about how Bitcoin, in terms of an analogy that can work to describe how and why the block size in the blockchain matters is because if you look here, this gives a good visual indicator as to the differences between what most people know as Bitcoin. Here it's described as Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin SV. Okay, so if you are watching this and you're not familiar with what happened to Bitcoin a couple years back, essentially since about 2 years ago, there's been splits. Okay, and so Bitcoin split into Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and then Bitcoin Cash split into Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. So what this means is that there are three main networks, or more popular ones, that are still in the top 10 list of cryptocurrencies that all share the same Bitcoin blockchain. The fundamental difference between each of them, though, has to do with the protocol. Okay, and so from protocol level, they are sharing different versions of the protocol. Bitcoin SV is looking to restore Bitcoin back to version 0.1. And the reason for this is because essentially the idea is if you can change the protocol of Bitcoin, that means you have power over Bitcoin as well. And the idea was from Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, was to keep that set in stone so that everything else could be built on top of that. Okay? And so what happened to BTC, Bitcoin Core, is that an artificial limit of 1 megabyte was put on Bitcoin, which has resulted in essentially this scenario. So by putting a 1 megabyte limit, it means that for every second, only 6 people are able to really transact. Okay, and we saw the issues around this back in 2017, whereby once the network started to grow, the mempool started to fill up, the number of confirmations started to stack, or I should say unconfirmed transactions started to stack, and this meant that essentially they had to take a lot of Bitcoin's power off chain into something called Lightning Network because they couldn't figure out how to scale on chain, and because they couldn't figure it out, they thought it doesn't work. What Bitcoin SV is now actually showing and proving is that it can work on chain. And so you can see over here, 14,000 at the moment can transact every second. And if you're thinking about a global payment system or a cash system, this becomes important. And so if you take a look at these two, all right, left and right, think of them as sort of sizes of pipes in a plumbing system. So here, of course, you have your pipes, right? You have your plumbing system. And Bitcoin originally was meant to be actually something quite boring. But for whatever reason, it turned out to be what it is today. And most people are excited about Bitcoin's price value versus actually looking at the tech itself. And understandably, right? A lot of things in the market globally are, you looked at perceived value, right? And value can be determined by anybody, right? If someone can put a price on it, then it clearly has value to some people. But in some instances, when you're talking about a cash system, you actually got to look at the piping system itself, the plumbing. Okay, and I gave a scenario last night in the interview with Singapore. Right, in Singapore, there are some parts of the country where they have older plumbing systems. All right, and these plumbing systems, well, the size of their pipes are very small, so they actually have to put signs up to say, hey, please don't use toilet paper, because the way the pipes in the plumbing system was built back in the day was it didn't account for toilet paper. Because in Asia, a lot of people just use a spray. They, you know, not everybody, but there are still a lot of people who, do squat style and just use a spray and they don't require toilet paper. And so the problem with toilet paper is that it clogs up the pipes. So they advise you, please either put the toilet paper in a separate bin, okay, or don't use it at all. And that's actually very similar to what is happening on BTC and the Lightning Network. Think of Lightning Network as the waste basket in which you put the toilet paper, because the actual pipes can't take the toilet paper. All right. And so this is a very useful analogy when you're trying to talk to people who don't seem to get the system side, so this plumbing system aspect of Bitcoin, and why block size does matter for scale. Because the beauty of Bitcoin is that instead of putting an artificial cap, the pipes themselves can dynamically resize, right? And so by the intention, according to Satoshi, is to actually have no block size limit. All right. The artificial caps are just put in there so that they could test things and try it out. And so, you have to ask yourself, if that's the case, do you want to have a plumbing system, right, for a future world whereby the size of the pipes are maybe the size of straws, like depicted here? So this is similar to the 1 megabyte cap, right, that's being given. And if any of you know, right, the smaller a straw, even if you're drinking something, the harder it is to suck things or even blow out. And so with the larger size, it works better as a money system because it means more people are able to transact every second. And by having a dynamically resizing or even an unbounded pipe size, it means that it can cater to a future Bitcoin world whereby everybody is able to transact without worrying about these congested pipes, right? Like we saw with the Singaporean toilets, okay? And even if you look at the size of those pipes that are on the wall, right? Just imagine like a whole bunch of toilet paper trying to fit through that. It's going to get nasty, okay? And so as a result, a solution to this, right, because people don't want to have to rebuild the pipes, is to create a business off of selling waste baskets to the side so that people just throw their toilet paper to the side. And that's essentially what BTC is doing with transactions, is that they're throwing transactions to the side in the form of Lightning Network because they are too lazy, or maybe they just don't want to deal with the idea of larger pipes. Okay, so taking that into account, I hope this helps you understand a little bit about how the block sizes work and very simply why it matters for it to be, as large as possible for a future economy. If we keep it at this 1 megabyte size, we're going to have a lot of problems, which we've already seen, and no amount of off-chain solutions is going to fix the problem staring them right in their faces. So, which one do you want? Do you want a version of Bitcoin that can dynamically resize based on sort of how many transactions are coming in, or just in terms of its maximum capacity, can fit a lot? Or do you want to have a 1 megabyte one whereby, well, hey, it's limited there, and let's just create something off on the side? You end up creating a lot more inefficiency, in my opinion. And so with that, thanks for listening. Hope that helped. And if you're wanting to tune into more, check us out. Follow us at Faiā Corp on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And also, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, just go to www.faiacorp.com.